Let's head out and look at some mosaics in the garden. I'm going to take you on a tour of my back garden in Alameda. We'll start here with this little round top table. This is a glass mosaic. I made a classic mistake with this one, which I can warn you about right off from the get-go. I made this mosaic table on a wooden base. You can see right there, it was sort of a wooden circle. And you basically want to stay away from wood as your base in any mosaic that's going to live outdoors in your garden. What happens, of course, is the wood swells and contracts with water. Here's my sweet peas. And breaks through the grouting and the adhesive. So I will probably eventually redo that one on a more suitable base for an outdoor mosaic. So that's the deck that we just came down the stairs, and now we're down on the ground, and this is the little tiny postage stamp garden we have. You can see flagstones and a couple of beds here, there, and across. So one of the first things you see when you come down is this mosaic, which is referred to as a pebble cast mosaic. I'll come around the other side so you can see it a little bit better. And so what this is, pebble cast meaning you're casting rocks or pebbles into a cement base. So what I did is when we were laying the flagstones back here, I left this spot, kind of reserved it with some bender board, and then poured the cement and positioned the pebbles in the cement. And so it gives a nice little design pattern in the middle of the layout. Another garden mosaic that I do a lot of are flower pots. So here's one example here, and just regular clay flower pots. This particular one is a technique called picassette, which is French for stolen from plate. And basically what it means is broken china. So you can see those are little pieces of broken dishes. It's one of the wonderful things about mosaic is that it always makes a home for your heartbroken pieces. Another thing that's very easy to do for mosaics in the garden are stepping stones, and there's an example of one there. So that's just a square cement stepping stone that I picked up at Home Depot, very cheap, and then just mosaicked the top surface of it. You can imagine doing a bunch of those and laying them out as stepping stones. This one I just have propped up, but you get the idea. The key here is, just like I mentioned with that wood top table, to always use materials that are going to stand up to the outdoors if you're going to have them in the garden. So in this case, those are high-fired ceramic tiles, which can definitely stand up to the outdoors, and pieces of mirror, which also will. And then for your adhesive, you want to use thin set as opposed to just regular glue. And that really helps to keep it all watertight. All right. So you can see over here, I have another kind of mosaic, which is a glass on glass. There we go. So that one, as you can tell, is a rescued old window. Neighbor down the street was replacing her windows, and I asked her if I could take her old ones, and she was happy to get rid of them. And then I just glued glass onto the glass to get that pattern. Of course, you have to, there again, now since we're dealing with glass, we can't use thin set for the adhesive, so we had to use glue, and you just have to use a very serious industrial strength glue that dries clear. And there's no grout on this one. You notice the other mosaics you've seen so far have grout in between the pieces. This is just groutless, glass on glass. Much easier and fast, actually, to do. So a good use of your old windows. And one of the catches with these mosaics is that once you assemble all the pieces, they get pretty heavy. So in this case, we've got this hanging from this cable chain, you can see, screwed into the 2x4s of the fence. And that gives it a sufficient support. We also came up with a clever way, because it's hanging just like an inch or two away from the fence. We came up with a clever way to keep it from bouncing around in the wind. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but we what we did was we put little closet bumpers, door bumpers, on the back. And that keeps it so it has a minimum amount of shift in the wind. And then back here we have like a little laundry area that's just stone. And I've got a few failed mosaic projects in here, little things that I did and put together. And so if they're made out of stone, I just stick them in. This one actually was a practice for that pebble cast mosaic that you saw earlier. So got a second home. And then the last one I want to show you is a mosaic made from plants. So over here you'll see we have a vertical garden that's hanging on the fence. And that's actually made up of 4 smaller squares that are kind of stuck together and hanging on a frame. And the small squares are made out of plastic. I'll get a little closer so you can see better. Okay, yeah, they're made out of plastic. And each of the 4 quadrants is made up of, I think it's 25 little slots that you can put a plant in. And the slots are kind of angled down. So you put the soil in and then you put the plant in there. And then the whole thing is irrigated. I've got the irrigation system, the drip irrigation system running along the top, and you can see how the top edge of the vertical garden is this kind of serrated bit, and the water just flows through and trickles down through the plants all the way down. Pretty important to have an irrigation system on something like this because the pockets for the plants are so small they dry out really fast. So unless you're able to water it every day by hand, you'll want to have an irrigation system. But I love this because it's the same principle as mosaics, that is, a lot of individual pieces put together to have the whole be larger than the sum of its parts. And I can play around with this one as plants have died or gotten too large for the frame. I replace it with other plants, and so I play around with shades of green and leaf shape and different variegation. It gives it a little, just kind of, it's like a work in progress. I just continually play with it. So lots of mosaic things you can do in your garden: glass on glass, tabletops, pots, addresses. You can do a mosaic of your address. You can mosaic chairs. I've thought for a while actually of this little cafe table and chairs that I might mosaic the tops of those. As long as you pick something fairly smooth like ceramic tile, you can still sit on it or eat on it. Glass is another good one for doing that sort of thing. Anyway, that's Mosaics in the Garden. Thanks so much.